all those good things. All right, we are going to get things started here because we want to give everyone as much time as possible to ask questions and to process all of this great information. So for those of you that don't know, I am Eve Molzon. I am the founder of Dog Handler Academy. So if this is the first time you've ever joined us, welcome. We try and find experts in the industry to provide great information to you. Each month we pick a different topic and a different expert because nobody can be everything to everyone. So by bringing in people that know their stuff and people that I feel have trustworthy backgrounds to bring you as much knowledge as possible. So I have met Mr. Sean Felty, probably 10 years ago, maybe 9.
Yeah,
You
I
weren't
don't
at
know
the first
exactly where.
oddball.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, but I met you at Hershey.
Yep.
Yeah, so 9 or 10 years ago, met Sean, his fabulous wife Jen, and the fam and your crew because you were having a staff meeting in the restaurant at the Hershey Expo. So it was great. Got to see
Yeah.
how that all looked.
Yeah. Yep. We still do weekly breakfast meetings. So
That is awesome. That is awesome. So Sean owns Greenland Pet Resorts with his wife. Um, is the father-in-law still hanging
yeah,
tough?
absolutely. Yep. Yeah. My wife and father-in-law.
There you go. Who just likes to come and harass everybody and tell jokes and have fun with us at the conventions. So they
Yeah.
own several resorts. Their origin story is phenomenal, but as an entity that owns numerous pet resorts, just imagine the labor costs in that. And that is where Sean has really narrowed things down, created processes, created procedures, and created a system to allow us to look at our labor costs and really kind of drill that down a little bit better to make sure that we are running as efficiently as we possibly can. So Sean, tell us your background. Like where'd you start from before you jumped into the dog daycare world?
Yeah. So worked at a dog daycare, and I'll go through some of this in the presentation here. But yeah, I worked in a dog daycare in a kennel back then when I was like 15 years old, and it just so happened to be that I was dating the owner's daughter, and so I kind of grew up working in the business, and then went to college, got a degree in radiology, and then I worked my way through a bunch of different modalities within radiology, and eventually into management and healthcare. And while I was in management and healthcare, my wife had left her finance job to go all in on expanding Greenland. So we were kind of operating a kennel on a property that we bought in an auction. And then I was working full time in healthcare. And then eventually I was able to kind of take a bunch of the things that I learned in healthcare and work for the business full time and join the team and help grow from 2 to 6 locations.
Fabulous. 6 locations.
Yeah.
So those of us that only operate one right now, we just went holy buckets.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's really it's been a really cool journey getting to the 6 locations, but obviously like um you have huge wins, right? But you also have if you make mistakes, a lot of times they're multiplied as well. So that can be kind of brutal at times as well. So
Oh, absolutely, right? You make one shift and then it just kind of trajectoried everything else. So
yeah.
crazy, crazy. So when you made the leap from healthcare into Greenland, um, and now at 6, so what have you done? What is this system that you have created that has allowed you guys to be much more streamlined in your workforce?
Yeah, so it's basically something that we adapted from the healthcare world. So while I was in management in healthcare, one of my primary responsibilities was to reduce turnaround time in the emergency department, and we did that through basically mapping out processes, eliminating waste, and benchmarking our staff. So really what we did was we had all of this data from all of these other different hospital systems, and we had benchmarks on what our turnaround time needed to be. And so we worked towards hitting that using these benchmarks. And so all of that can apply to what we do as well. So that's essentially what I've been doing is I'm creating benchmarks, which I've created off of our facilities. I now have more data from client benchmarks, and I've got different benchmarks for different types of facilities. And really what it comes down to is putting a system in place so that your manager can have a tracking system that acts almost like a flight plan when a pilot's flying a plane. So you're setting a course, right? And most people, they'll have an idea of what they're going to do for, how many hours that they want to allow for a specific week, and
Yep.
they'll try to stick to that, right? But it can just get off track, and that just happens over time if you don't have a system that's constantly correcting course and giving your manager uh, an instant feedback loop of how they're doing in managing labor at your facility.
Oh, absolutely. Like you said, you you give an inch and it kind of takes a mile. And next thing you know, that mile is just the everyday, that's just the natural occurrence until you're able to kind of dial it back in and give it some accurate information. So fabulous. Well, without further ado, go ahead and lead us down that path because I think everyone is excited to figure out how they can do better.
All right, awesome. So Eve, just confirm for me, you guys can see my screen. We're good to
I
go.
can see your screen.
All right, so already talked about a little bit of this, but I'm Sean. It's great to meet you all. I appreciate you guys coming to listen here. So yeah, we have 6 boarding, daycare, and training facilities, all located in central Pennsylvania. They're all about 10,000 square feet in size. We have one that's a little bit larger, and we have around 130 team members. Um, Fun fact about our business, this year we're actually going to be celebrating our 1 millionth visit. So we have a bunch of reporting requirements in Pennsylvania, and we are going to hit our 1 millionth visit this year. So that is something that I don't know, we're pretty proud of that. We think that's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool stat. And we've been in this space for over 20 years. So this is actually the very first Greenland. It was called Greenland Kennel back then because that's kind of where the industry was. And this is obviously before my father-in-law fixed it up a bit. So
Just a bit, right? Just a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah. There's been a lot of renovation here, and this one's still going really strong. It's one of our strongest stores. So, um, but yeah, this is where I worked when I was 15 after I met a girl who was wild about pugs. Um, and 7 years later, she became my wife. And that's when, I came to realize that my life would largely be about dogs. And at that point, I still had no idea the magnitude. But yeah, her and I have been together building for a long time, which is really fun. So she is basically I'm the numbers person in our business, and she is the one who makes everything happen. Um,
That she does. I've hung out with her at several training seminars, so
yeah, if you know her, you know that that's very true. These are the pugs, okay? So that's me at a much younger age with the 2 pugs that kind of started it all.
love it.
That's Roxy and Dixie in a snow fort. This is our family. Um, we're missing Ryder from this picture, but don't worry, he's here. This is my son. So my daughter is 11, my son is 9, and then we decided to have another round. So um, my son Ryder is 5 months old, and because I couldn't resist, and he's incredibly cute. This is when he was 3 months old and he first started smiling. So
Yay.
yeah, sorry, had to include that, hopefully to make some of you smile. Um,
Because we're
and
talking about
then
numbers, so we need something to smile about, right?
that's right, that's right. As far as me, just like personally, I've always been drawn to, I don't know, some would call me an extremist, but I like, I go deep into hobbies. So some of the things I like to do, I coach soccer, spend a lot of time in nature, skiing, running, or hiking. I train Brazilian jiu-jitsu multiple times per week, and I've trained for and run multiple 100-mile ultra marathons. So you can get to know me in one slide. The top left, I beat that guy up. The top right, the guy on the white beat me up. Uh, Bottom left, yeah, that's me finishing a 100-mile race, and then bottom right is just yeah, the whole family and the reason that yeah, we do everything we do. Um,
All good
okay,
things. All
yeah.
good things.
So
And
today's
just to note, like, if there were pictures of you sitting in a bar or on a golf course, totally different story.
yeah, yeah, that's yeah, that's not me. At one point that was me, but not anymore. Um, so this presentation is called From Chaos to Clarity, and it's about mastering labor costs in pet care. And this is where the numbers come in. So I apologize, but we're going to start off with some numbers. So labor costs are the profit killer in your boarding and daycare business, and this this chart I think shows us why, and I'm going to explain why. So most of the other expenses that we have are fixed, right? We have our marketing expenses. We probably pay an agency, and then we set a budget. So your budget might fluctuate a little bit, but you generally know what your marketing, and you can control it. So you generally know what your marketing is going to be. You have your rent. You don't have a ton of control over that usually. You've got utilities, yes, you should try to keep those as low as possible. But again, these are costs of doing business and they're generally pretty fixed throughout the year. Um, so labor costs are variable and they are literally like the main lever we have to increase our profit. So a lot of people will have a general idea of where they are with their labor ratio, so their labor as compared to their revenue. Um, but if you want to take this like really seriously and get everything you can out of your business, you need to focus on this number and having a mechanism in place to manage it and move it. So if you take a look at this chart, this is going to show you exactly why it's so important. So if you just pretend that these are 5 different business owners, and just take a look at the chart, and it's showing you that, if you're at 60%, there's probably somebody on this call that's operating a very similar business. So let's say they also do $1 million in revenue, and they're operating at 40%. So if you just look at the amount of profit that the 40% operator is earning compared to the 60% operator, you can see why this is so important. But you can also see that there's an opportunity. So if you're looking at this and you know that your labor ratio is 55%, you know that it's possible for you to go to 50%, and you can see exactly what effect that's going to have on your bottom line. And this isn't these numbers aren't, it's not like you're bringing in more revenue and then having expenses on top of that. Managing your labor costs, these savings go directly to your bottom line. So super important. And I like to use that as a visual, just so people can kind of think about it in terms of each one of these is a different store. Um,
Yeah, I
and
think the big thing is, like you said, if you're sitting at 55% labor cost and you can bump it down to 50, That's 50 grand. Um,
Yeah.
I know what I could do with an extra $50,000, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then also when you look at this, your labor costs, generally if you're if you're semi-absentee, like you're not in the facility every day working with the dogs, you generally pull your salary out of this. So if you're at 60% and your profit is $100,000, you got to think about, how much are you paying yourself? So what is your actual margin at the end of the year? So yes, 5% is at that revenue, 5% is $50,000. And I've seen people go from 60 to 45. So this is definitely something that's doable, and we're going to go through and I'm going to show you exactly what I've been doing with people. And the reason that I am talking about this so much is that we've made all the mistakes. We've been there. We've never gone high into the 60s, and we always had like a makeshift system for managing labor. But 4 years ago we were at 47%, and we realized that even hitting those types of numbers that we were still underperforming because we would have these random times where payroll would just creep up and we didn't have a great system in place to keep it top of mind. So I'm going to first talk about a couple reasons that chaos happens in regards to the dogs are unruly in regards to labor. So number one is overstaffing on slow days. So, we all should have like a minimum staffing level. There's just going to be a number of hours that we're not probably going to go below, but a lot of people
Sure.
set that too high, and they don't adjust for the days that are slower. Um, the next one is reactive scheduling. And to me, this means, this is like figuring out that you had scheduling issues after they happen. So that's like not looking ahead, not generally having like a systematic way to schedule. Um, the third one is overhiring. And overhiring is, if you ask somebody, they probably wouldn't say like, oh, I overhire, but overhiring can happen over time. And a lot of times in our industry, because it can be very seasonal, depending on the type of operation you run, um, what happens is you have a staffing level in your slow season, you ramp up your staffing for the busy season, and yes, you might come down, after August, you might start to bring your staffing level back down. But if you don't have a specific place that you want to get to when you do that, you can continually add layers to your staffing levels. And then all of a sudden, a couple years later, you're looking at your labor costs in your slower season and you're trying to figure out what happened. Um, and then the final one is just not having a system in place for labor management and sort of just guessing. So there are like three main things that in my head for a GM that should be extremely important. And for all of us, number one is always safety, right? And safety is like um, is very involved, right? That means we're keeping all the dogs safe, but we're also training our staff on how to keep the dogs safe. It's not just about us; it's about getting our team to the point where they can safely take care of the dogs. The second one is sales, right? You need to be bringing sales into the door. You need to be taking the opportunity, any opportunity you can to make a relationship with the customer, to continue to, you know, um, just continue that relationship. Ask them when's their next reservation, when are you coming to daycare next? And then the third one, and arguably this one should be number two to me, um, it should be labor costs, in my opinion, because that is the one thing that we have to operate a profitable business. So
Yeah,
this
my
is,
three measuring sticks are always staff safety, dog safety, facility safety. So I love that you have safety in there.
yeah, absolutely. Um, so action plan. All right. So this is what we're going to go through. We're going to assess. So we're going to actually going to show you how I would check a labor ratio, and also how you should continue to monitor it after you make changes. We're going to go through some benchmarking. So I'm going to show you what labor hours per pet is, and not only what it is, but how it's used. I'm going to show you what I've been doing after we assess, do the benchmark. I'm going to show you about adjusting schedules, and then we're going to talk about putting a system in place to track what you've been working hard to change. So when we do an initial assessment, we need to understand where we are now before we know where we can go. A lot of people have a number in their head of what their labor ratio is, or maybe they have like a rough estimate, but you really want to get an exact, close to exact number. So generally, I will start, if you want to do like a quick start with this, in April, use the last 10 pay periods of data, and you're going to get a baseline and figure out what the room for improvement is. You need to include wages and taxes in this number. So your wages and your taxes from your payroll report. You're going to, if you're not in the facility every day, using or taking care of the dogs like hands-on, you want to remove your salary from this. If you are going to have your business valued, they're going to look at everything. So they're going to look at your 401k, your benefits, the fees that go into it. All of those things are going to be included. But if you don't have an easy way to pull those numbers, don't let that get in the way of you actually checking on this labor ratio, because you may go and check and see that your labor ratio's at 55% anyways. So in your head, that, it's probably a little higher than that with all of the other added costs. But a lot of people get overwhelmed that they're not going to get this like perfect number, especially people who are not numbers people. It's okay to just get started and pull your wages, make sure it includes taxes, and go from there. So you're running these reports for the exact pay period dates. So you don't want to look at this monthly, because there's, 4.4 weeks in a month, or 4.5 weeks in a month. And it's going to look weird. You want to do it for the exact 2-week period of the check date. So I have an example here of, this is some sample data, and this is real, but this is what I do. So you lay out 10 different rows. I always write the pay period down because it makes it easier for me to go through and pull the revenue reports. And then you record your labor costs and taxes for that check date. You have a percentage column. This is going to show you for each specific pay period what your labor percentage was. And then I always look at a total as well. So in this specific instance, this facility, last 10 pay periods, was right around 55% labor costs. Eve, does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Want to check in and make sure. Okay.
Nope, you're all good. You're all good.
Okay.
So
All
yeah,
right,
no,
cool.
follow that. So your check date, what the revenue check date was. So looking at this, so you're running high on certain, like you said, is, based on holidays, seasonality, that
Yeah.
your labor percentages are up or down.
Well, yeah, it all depends, right? Because if you sell a lot of packages, you might have like a package sale, and that's going to boost your revenue. So you want to look at it. That's why you want to get a total at the bottom, like a running total. You can do this for every pay period in the year as well. The 10 pay period thing is what I get started with, for people to get like a quick start on this. The only thing I would caution is you wouldn't want to pull this for the last 10 pay periods in September, because you're going to make your labor numbers look really, really good, likely, because almost everybody that I've talked to performs okay in the summer.
Right.
because we're just in an industry that is seasonal and also, has a lot of tailwinds. So we usually get busy no matter what in the summer. But yeah, you can set this up for a whole year as well. So, all right, so we're going to move on to the benchmarking section. So that's the initial assessment. Figure out what your labor percentage is, and then we're going to meet our game changer, and our game changer is labor hours per pet. So the formula for labor hours per pet is you take the total hours divided by your total volume. And when I'm talking about volume, I'm specifically talking about boarding and daycare volume. I include, so most of our training is done, it's like the day train. So for us, I include that just as daycare. If you have like a fully fleshed out kind of separate training business, I wouldn't include that here. I would include just boarding and daycare. And as far as grooming, I always look at, we don't do full service grooming. So for me, I don't, we just do go home baths. So I don't add grooming as a volume. I generally will, most people commission their groomer. So I generally don't involve grooming in this benchmarking process at all. So labor hours per pet, hours divided by total volume. So here's an example of, this is 90 days. This is real data of a facility. And this is the roll up. So added all the volume up, added all the hours, and then we figured out the labor hours per pet. So their labor hours per pet over the course of 90 days was 1.39.
Wow. So they're doing just under 5,000 animals through the door.
Yep.
So in the boarding number, the 412, that's how many animals came through the door, not how many like nights that they stayed with us. Correct?
You can think of it like pet nights each day. I think my next slide is gonna answer your question.
Perfect.
So yeah, so this is 90, so the labor hours per pet over the course of 90 days was 1.39 for this facility. So instead of doing a total roll up, I start with a sample size of 90 days and I record the date, the scheduled hours, the actual hours, boarding volume and daycare volume by day, and get a total volume, total number of hours used for those 90 days, and figure out the labor hours per pet. So this is what that looks like. And I can't fit 90 days on a slide here, but this is 10 days of the sheet. So think of this like you'd have 90 rows on here. Okay, and this is for each day. So on this slide, we are figuring out exactly what our labor hours per pet was on each day. So if you look at this, on 3/29, our labor hours per pet was 0.93. So we're below 1 there, which is good. And as I said, I have benchmarks. They're generally below this 0.93 number. But in any case, we're going to look at this as benchmarking. We're going to benchmark off of our own performance in this example. So on this day, we took care of 111 pets with 103 hours. Okay, so that puts our labor hours per pet at 0.93. Oh God, how do I go back? Hold on, sorry. Okay, so that puts our labor hours per pet at 0.93. But if you look at April 2nd, our labor hours per pet on that day are almost 2.6. So what that's telling us is that for every pet that was in the facility that day, a single person could have spent over 2.5 hours with each individual pet. So that's too high. If you think about this in terms of operating a daycare, right? We have a check-in and a checkout. Generally, if you know the dog, that's going to take 2 minutes, right? We have we're generally managing groups of dogs, and maybe we have to give a single dog a correction, or we have to step in between them, or we have to separate a dog. But generally, we're not going to spend 2.6 hours with each individual pet that's in our care. And then if you just look at this by day, there's some days that our labor hours per pet are 1.51, 1.4, 1.71. So what this tells you is that if on this day we could take care of 111 dogs at 0.93 hours per pet, then there's no reason that we can't take care of 71 dogs at 0.93 hours per pet, or 81 dogs at 0.93 hours per pet. So this is where benchmarking can be super helpful. I'm going to check in with you there, Eve, again. This all tracking?
Yeah, so are there any variables that ever come into play with this? Like just known variables?
Well, I'm not sure.
I'm
Known
just thinking of
variables
the
as in,
date, like nothing comes to me like on those dates, like it's not a holiday. Um,
yeah,
maybe like a or not a staff party, but like if you were doing like an Easter party
sure.
that day, you'd be heavier on labor just because you're doing photos and things like that.
Yeah, so that kind of stuff does come up. Yep. So if you have a party or a staff party, right, you're gonna have extra hours. But in this case, we're 0.93 one day, and every other day is above 0.93. So you are not probably going to hit that benchmark every single day, but you can strive to hit it and get very, very close. And I'm going to show you guys
Yeah.
how you
And
do
you
that.
did say, yeah, Sean, you did say, and Steve just asked that front desk hours are included in this because they're spending time checking the dog in and checking the dog out.
Yeah. Yep. So anybody that's in the facility, um, yeah, anybody that's in the facility basically working with the dogs is included in this. And that's one of the things that comes up the most with the first thing a lot of people ask about is the front desk. And we don't we personally, now we have reservation specialists that handle calls, right? So we have an advantage there. And I don't include those in my benchmark. Um, my basically my benchmark is created not including those. But we don't schedule a front desk person. Um, we have a GM. They are essentially assigned to the office, but they also float back and forth. They're not only in the front desk doing front desk tasks.
Gotcha.
So I'm
Gotcha.
gonna, and even so, like if we even just in this example, right? If this person does have a front desk person, they can still try to hit 0.93 hours per pet every single day because they're already doing it. This historical data proves to us that we can actually handle 0.93 hours per pet. And I'm going to show you guys exactly how you can target a benchmark. So if we want to set a benchmark, and we need to know how many hours we need. Okay, so the way we do labor hours per pet, it's total hours divided by volume. The way we figure out the hours that we need is we take our total volume and we multiply it by our benchmark. So here's what that looks like. Okay, so this is the same 10 days. We create a benchmark column and we figure out how many hours we needed to hit that benchmark. Okay, so this is showing us the first line. We used 88 hours. If we wanted to hit that 0.93, we needed to use 66 hours. Same thing in the next line. We used 86 hours. We needed to use 77 hours. So this allows you to set a target. that tells you how many hours you actually need.
All right, so
And again,
so looking at that,
the last one,
yeah. So labor hours per pet, that's the benchmark. So that's how many hours we would need to schedule to hit that benchmark based on the workload.
correct.
Okay, got it, got it. So the workload being number of pets coming through the facility.
Yeah. And I want to like, I've said this already, but like I want to stress the point here before we go to this next slide is like this is this is something that this facility is already doing. They're already operating occasionally at 0.93 below 1. So there truly is no reason that they can't hit this benchmark. My benchmarks are below that, and I help people get to benchmarks below that. But for this case, we're just using data that's already happening within the facility. And so this is an idea of how much you can save by hitting a benchmark like this. So we've got our benchmark column, we've got our hours needed, and we have the hours that we actually used. And this is how many hours we can save on the right hand side. So remember that this is 10 days worth of data. So if we were to hit 0.93 every day, and maybe we don't hit it every day, maybe we're not dead on, right? But maybe we get 90% of the way there. We could save 218 hours. If you take an average hourly rate of $17, it doesn't include any taxes. The potential savings in 10 days is $3,700.
Yeesh.
And so multiply that by 3, and we're talking about, you know, between $9,000 and $12,000 a month.
That is a significant dollar amount. That's a nice vacation.
Yeah, in
That's
a
a new
month.
floor machine.
Yeah, in a month. It's a lot of things. It's a lot of things. It's a lot of money at the end of the year that you can use to grow. You can use to develop your staff. You can use to reinvest. You can buy cages, whatever, whatever you want to do. But I have seen a lot of labor calculators that factor in like dollar amounts, but the real way to manage labor is to tie it to specific hours.
No, and it really does make sense. I mean, in that slide when you're like, there's 33 dogs, and so you don't need as many hours as you did for the day that you had 80 dogs. And that cutting of staff, that, dialing it back to get to that benchmark is really the key thing.
Yep. Yeah, and what the key is going to be to have a a base, right? And schedule based on your actual volume. So on a day like that 33 day that you just pointed out, you know, we may not get to 0.93 labor hours per pet just because it's such a low volume day. But you can certainly get below um, you could get to your minimum for the day, right? You don't need 85 hours on a day like that.
Right. And I think that's the key thing is, when we look at the schedule, we're hoping to always have those 111 days, and again, as an example, if this was their capacity, right? So you book your schedule that way. But if you have this historical data, you can really schedule more accordingly and know where you can move stuff around.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so that's what we're going to talk about next. So we're going to talk about adjusting the schedule. So once you have this 90 days worth of data, and what I'm about to talk about also applies to if you have a decent idea, like if you have daycare reservations and boarding reservations, and you have a decent idea of how many dogs you have coming, you can use this same way to benchmark. You can multiply that number by your benchmark, and it'll tell you how many hours that you should schedule. But I'm going to go through how I've been adjusting schedules for people next. So once you have that sheet with 90 days, 90 specific days, I always just use a pivot table. So you figure out your what day of the week it is based on the date. There's a formula for that, and you create a pivot table, and you figure out your average volume, and then you figure out the hours that you need by day of week. And this is going to get you closer to where you need to be to hit that benchmark.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all know what our slow days are. Um, and so
Yes,
it's
and I would also say, Eve, that a lot of people think they know what their slow days are.
ooh, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of people that think that, I don't know, pick a day is their busiest day, and it's not. So it's good to actually drill this down and look at it. So you always need to make a scheduling adjustment, because what we're going to talk about later with the tracker. So the whole purpose of the tracker, and it looks very similar to what we just saw, but the tracker tells your manager each day they put their volume in, they put the number of hours they scheduled in, and the tracker tells them how many hours they're off. And so if you don't adjust your schedule, the tracker may tell you to cut 40 hours in a day, and that's just not possible, right? You can't, it's going to be really difficult to cut 40 hours in a day. But if you're off by, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours, it's not as difficult to send somebody home early, to ask somebody to come in a little later, to maybe, ask somebody if they want the day off, that kind of thing. So that's the adjusting part.
Yeah,
Now,
I don't know a single staff person who, when you say, hey, you want to go home early, they don't go, sure, right? Like it's pretty rare
exactly.
when you make them the offer. Now, vice versa, when the payroll comes around, then they're like, hey, how come I didn't make as much money? But um,
Yeah. And the hardest part about this is this scheduling adjustment. So um, that's what we're going to talk about next. So we're going to talk about facing the fears of making these adjustments in your schedule, because this comes up for everybody. So the first issue we face is staff pushback, right? Owners worry. I hear this a lot. They worry that the staff is going to think they don't like them, right? And then the other one is, will care suffer? So I'm going to address those here. So if you want to win staff buy-in with this, this process is very repeatable, and I've seen this play out multiple times. So you need to frame this as, we need to become a leaner and stronger team, and you need to find your champion to help you do this. And like, the person that's going to help you do this, it might be your GM, but it also might not be your GM. And if you're sitting here and like contemplating it and thinking like, oh, I think I know who might be able to help me with this, like that's the person. There are people that are in your organization that are looking for opportunities to do more. The person you want to help you with this is the person that is constantly looking at what you're doing at the facility and saying, hey, we do this every day, but it's kind of a waste of time, or it takes us forever, or it's the person who's already looking for efficiencies within your facility. Um, and when you're reducing your hours, seems obvious, but you're always going to start with your C players, right? We all have A, B, and C players. You're not going to reduce the hours of the people that are your best workers. And when you start to have this conversation about being a leaner, stronger team, you're going to see people come out of the woodwork on both sides. You're going to have people that dig their heels in and say like, well, how are we supposed to do that or this? And then you're also going to have people that want to step up, that want to lead, and want to kind of take charge and help you with this. In some cases, you may need to communicate to certain people that you no longer have the hours to give them. I'm working with somebody right now that The labor ratio was just very, very high. And they had to just do like a blanket, they had to remove a bunch of people from the schedule permanently because there was no other option for them. It was either that or go out of business. So that's an extreme case, but that's how you want to think about it. And then again, you know, when you're removing hours from a schedule, especially on the day-to-day basis, just like Eve said, you know, asking somebody if they want to go home, you don't have to frame it as like, you know, you got to get out of here. Like you can start with, you know, who wants to go home? Can you come in a couple hours late? Do you want the day off? That kind of thing. And then keeping care top notch. So you can protect quality while saving in labor costs. There's a couple things that I say about this, but number one, the example we just used, again, they are already doing that. They're already doing 0.93 labor hours per pet. So like they can keep doing that. The benchmark scales with the number of dogs. So as your volume goes up, you're going to allocate more hours. So you can only go so low with the benchmark, right? Because you wouldn't want to get into the territory of being unsafe. But the benchmark will allocate more hours as your volume increases, and it should. So my goal is for people to have the exact number of hours they need. I don't want them to have less than what they need, and I don't want them to have more than what they need. And then the other thing with keeping care top notch is that, you know, I think in their heads, and I think this is a bit of a red herring when you try to start to make these changes. This is what people say. They say, well, how are we going to take care of the dogs? And you know, the dogs aren't going to get good care. More people does not automatically mean that you're going to have better care for your dogs. If that's what it meant, you know, you could ask, you know, I would be able to ask somebody that schedules 100 hours per day when they don't need to, what their incident rate is at their facility, and they'd be able to say that it's zero, nothing ever happens here. And that's just not the case. So a lot of times with people who are over scheduling and people who have too many hours, it doesn't mean that those people are actually doing something and caring, giving better care to the dogs. Most of the time, it means that they've been given too much time to kind of find their own fun and
We
too
call that
much downtime.
lollygagging.
It's
Lollygagging,
it's
right?
exactly right. Right.
Yes,
So I guess my point is that the more hours you have, the more people you have, doesn't that's not what automatically creates safety and quality care in your facility.
absolutely. Yeah, someone had even commented, you know, in different states, and in fact, I think, Sean, where you are, there's a mandate of so many handlers per number of dogs, or I know you
Yeah.
guys have some requirements. So, you know,
Yeah, so I don't have that. I don't have that requirement. We keep ours like 1 to 15. Um, but this benchmark can totally be used for whatever ratio you want to keep.
right.
Um,
So it's
there's
not it's not detrimental if you have those parameters that you have to live by, you know, by your
no,
state. That benchmark number is still the benchmark number.
yeah, it's simple math. So you can create a benchmark and make sure that you have the right number of hours and people, right? Therefore people, for whatever you need.
Certainly, certainly. And I think you are right in the aspect, you know, when I think of how I do my scheduling, there are some days that we have an 11 to 6 person, and there are days that we don't have as many dogs, so we don't have an 11 to 6 person because I'm trying to keep to that benchmark number.
Yep. Um, Okay, so we did our initial assessment, we benchmarked, we adjusted our schedule, and now we are going to learn about tracking this and putting it all together. Um, so we need a daily system for our managers to use as their flight plan. And so that's what the productivity tracker is. It's got each day mapped out. It's got quite a few different formulas, but the gist of it is If they're going to put their hours, they're going to put their volume in, they're going to put their hours that they scheduled in. It's going to show them the hours that they need, and then it's going to show them the adjustment that needs made. And if you're scheduled above that, you want to do your best to reduce the hours and get to 100% on the productivity index. So this is all the same data. So we use that point. Whoops, sorry guys. Okay, we use that 0.93 benchmark. So you'll see that day we were at 99% on this productivity index. So all this productivity index is doing is comparing the number of hours we needed based on the benchmark to the number of hours that we actually used, and it's giving us a percentage. So this is the score for your manager each day when they fill this out. So the way this process works is they go in here every day, you pick a time, generally, 10 or 11, most dogs are in by that time. The earlier the better, because you have more time to adjust your schedule if you need to. But they're going to go in and they're going to put in the total, the boarding, the daycare, they're going to get their total workload. They're going to put their hours scheduled in here. And over in this scheduled versus need column, it's going to tell them how far they're off. So if you look at the one right below the one I have highlighted here, they're off by 5 hours. Okay. So on that day, they can look at their schedule and they can try to adjust their schedule and remove those 5 hours. And then the next day when they come in, they're going to do the same thing for the new day, but they're also going to put in the hours that were actually worked from the timekeeping system from the day before. So they'll go in, they'll put those numbers in, and they'll see what their performance was the day prior. And this turns red or green based on, if you're at 95%, it turns green. If you're below that, it stays red. So the goal here is to have mostly greens here in this column for the whole month. You're not, there's going to be days where you're in the red. It just happens. You can't perfectly execute this because there's a lot of variables. But having something where you go to every day, your manager goes to every day, and they see exactly how they perform the day before on a primary business function is the key to keeping this top of mind and actually getting it to work. Did that make sense, Eve?
Yeah, so 10 a.m., like you said, most dogs are there by 10 a.m. If you could do it a little earlier, even better, because then that gives you time to either tell somebody to not come in or come in late, or you're already thinking of who you can send home early. So at 10 a.m., you're like, hey, we're going to be at 88 dogs. I budgeted, I had budgeted so many hours. Based on my benchmark, I need to get rid of, like you said, 5 hours that day. So then they could look at asking somebody to come in late, not at all, maybe, or a combination of sending somebody home early and having somebody else, they can still make the adjustment of the hours, knowing that they still are at a safe number.
Right. Yeah. And it just eliminates a lot of the guesswork, because I hear that a lot too, is like people just feel like they're guessing. They don't know how many hours they need. They don't, they're just not really sure. And it eliminates the guesswork, not only for you as the owner, because you know when you set this, like, that it's going to be where you want it to be, but also for the manager.
Most definitely. And then are you, how often should the owner and manager kind of sit down and hash through this?
Um, I mean, so the way at first, if you're an owner and you have a manager doing this, like, you need to make sure they're doing this every day. This needs to become part of just the way they work.
Sure.
It Once they know where to find the numbers, which doesn't take that long to figure out, this takes like 2 minutes per day. So at first there's definitely a period of like, you got to babysit it and make sure they're doing it. But then, I think you can get to a point where you sit down and you look at your labor numbers every 2 weeks, just like we did with our initial assessment. I do the exact same thing with ongoing tracking after we implement this stuff. So it's the exact same process. So some people don't talk to their manager about like actual revenue and payroll numbers. And that's okay. In this gives you the ability to just tie it directly to volume and hours. So you could theoretically every 2 weeks go through, figure out what the labor hours per pet were for that pay period, and you could review it with them every 2 weeks.
Okay.
But yeah, this becomes a daily thing for them. Okay. What do we have here? Okay. Quick recap. Okay. So take control in 4 steps. Check your labor ratio, benchmark, figure out what your labor hours per pet are, use 90 days. That'll give you a good sample size of to start with. Um, adjust your schedules based on the data that you have, and then put a system in place to track using a daily system. I know we're at an hour. We're good till 9:30, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Just a
Keep chatting.
couple more slides here, guys. These are some results, and these are real results happening. So this is 4 examples. First client that I did this with saved $150,000 across 2 locations in her first year. I have a client now that is their average savings right now is $5,500 per pay period. So we're projecting over $140,000 saved in her first year. Another client with multiple locations, they're down $7,800 per pay period, projecting over 200,000 in savings in the first year. And then this fourth client, we had to make some major adjustments, but they in basically in about 15 days, they dropped their pay period. They dropped their payroll by $10,000 per pay period. So
Oh,
they're on
wow.
track to save about $250,000 in their first year using this exact same process.
I could pay down my debt with that. That's phenomenal, right? Good stuff. Um, so
Um, yeah.
so those are all very significant savings. And it's not that when you're looking at this, the objective is to cut a cost. So it's irrelevant, revenue wise, like people have been asking, like, well, we do a lot of add-ons, we do a lot of this. It has nothing to do with the add-ons because your labor is your labor. So when you're running this process, it's taking all that into account because you're doing a 90 days of historical data. So it's taking into account how much time you're spending on your add-ons, and it's taking in all of that to get you to your number. So it's not that you need to pluck a number from the sky and say, okay, well, this is my number that I want to hit. As Sean said, you're taking 90 days of historical data. So if you are heavy in add-ons, it doesn't matter what kind of packages or whatnot, it's truly taking the historical data of how many dogs are coming in your door and how many labor hours you're spending, figuring out what is your average and what's the best target that you can hit, and then projecting what your labor hours should be from that moment going forward based on the historical data.
Yes. And so yes, you can do that based on your own historical data. And then to take it even further, like these clients, they used a benchmark that I started them with because, we do a ton of add-ons, right? Like we have last month was superhero month. This month is barnyard bash month. We're doing add-ons constantly. So yeah, you have to have the add-ons sort of like dialed in, right? They're all pretty much the same type
Yes.
of thing, but they're just marketed and sold in a different way each month.
There's only
Um,
so many different sniffings that you can do. You just do it in a
right.
different theme.
It's a treasure hunt. It's a,
Right.
so all that stuff's included here. And like I said before, like we do training, we do puppy training. Um, so all of those things can be included in here. Um,
Yeah, I mean, that's the part that makes your spreadsheets so logical to me. Because it doesn't matter if I'm running all day play or if I'm running an enrichment daycare or if I'm running a daycare training facility, right? It is irrelevant what kind of facility you are running because it's all your historical data that we're creating that benchmark on. And then, like Sean said, looking at your benchmark, I mean, he's running 6 facilities. He kind of knows what he's talking about.
yeah, well, yeah.
You
So
know?
like that was the idea, is like the benchmark came from all 6 of my facilities. Like I crunched all those numbers. And that's how we got to where I start with people. Now, where I start with people is not always where we end up. Sometimes
Sure.
they decide they want to increase it. And that's all right too. But there's people that my first client is now beating the benchmark that I started her with, because she operates in a way where there's like a break in the middle of the day and all the dogs are put away. And so there's all different ways um, to use this, but using labor hours per pet as the actual mechanism for lowering your labor costs is the way to do it, and do it for good. So these savings are not like, it's not like you do this one time and you save that amount one time. Like, it's there for the rest of your business's life. So you got to remember that too. What's $150,000 a year in 10 years?
No,
It's
absolutely, absolutely. Chris had a question. Are you including every payroll hour on staff, such as, do your labor costs include workman's comp insurance, uniforms, job postings, recruiting? Your labor hours are
um yeah, so
manager, hourly staff, front desk staff. Your labor hours are everything but owner, correct?
yeah, so the hours on the tracker is, the way you can look at that is just like anybody who's actually in the facility that will interact with a dog. So if it's a front desk person checking in a dog, you're going to include them. I don't, my RSs, right? I don't include them on this labor tracker because this is for the facility specific labor. The RSs I manage differently, right? I'm looking at, what's our call volume? Um, how many emails do we get?
And
How many
for
leads
the
are we
record,
following up
everybody,
with?
yeah, so his reservation specialists are virtual, so they are not on site.
Yeah, well, they're in a call center, so they go to a renovated house, but yeah, and they get lots of snacks, and we treat them very nicely.
That's where Sean goes and hides out sometimes. He's like,
That's where my
I'm
office
gonna go
is.
eat the snack.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, oh, Riley asked, since she does not have historical data, is there a benchmark? Is there a target that she should be trying to hit as a new business?
Yeah, I mean, I would have a lot of yeah, there's a lot. So no, I mean, you can absolutely use this. I'm showing people how to do it with historical data, but yeah, you could definitely use something like this to get started on the right foot and make sure you're not getting overstaffed initially. And that would be my primary goal, Riley, would be, you need help. So you need to hire people, but yeah, I would not go crazy, because it's much easier to hire somebody than it is to build this big staff and get everybody used to working a certain way and chilling all the time and not doing anything half the time, and then having to cut that and refigure out how to make people productive. That's the hardest part about this, is the shrinkage.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you there because that's any time that I've adjusted the schedule. So, summer into fall into winter and then now into spring, I have different schedules for each season based on the seasonality of our business. And every time we make that adjustment, people go, "Oh, so we don't
Yeah,
have somebody that works this shift anymore?" Not right now.
exactly.
If we're only doing 82 dogs instead of 112, I don't need to have two people lollygagging.
Yeah.
So that's the important part. Megan says, when looking at boarding numbers, start of day and end of day can be very different. How do you factor those in? So you should already have those factored in your historical data.
Yeah, so you're essentially looking at how many dogs are going to be in your care that night. Um, because when you look at it historically, you're looking at pet nights. How many pet nights do we have on this day?
Certainly.
So probably, you know, or you could look at it at a point in time, a snapshot of how many dogs are here at this time on this day right now. Okay, so if you have a bunch of dogs checking out that didn't check out yet, they're going to show up, but the dogs that are going to check out at night, they're going to show up as well. So it kind of evens out, right? Because you're going to have check-ins and check-outs. As long as you're doing it the same way every single time, that's fine. But what I look at is basically just how many dogs do we have here today overnight? How many daycare dogs do we have?
Yeah, and to Sean's point, and maybe Megan to answer your question. So I have somebody that works 5:30 in the morning until 9 a.m. and their whole job is just to do boarding let outs. Well, I know that usually still have quite a few dogs in boarding on Monday mornings. So on that morning, that person might need a little extra help. So I make sure I have three morning staff come in, two at 5:30, one at 6 a.m. because one of them will have to jump back and help him to keep us on our time frame. But Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I can take those morning people and stagger them later in the day because he's not going to need extra help because I don't have as many dogs in there. But then on Friday night, I know that I'm going to need an extra person in the evening because all of my boarding dogs have checked in for the night. So to answer your question, even though I do all of that, I can still go back and look at that benchmark number of hours. I just know based on my reservation times when I could cut those hours back. So on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I can tell those morning people to come in later, and I can cut maybe an evening person if my daycare numbers don't hit where they need to hit. So I think that answers your question.
Eve, all right, is it
Yes.
okay if I have first of all, hold on a second. I created a guide you guys can download at my website. Has more information. This presentation probably, you know, more detailed, but it's got a snapshot of what our tracker looks like in the
Oh,
guide.
fabulous.
So you guys can download that for free. Eve, do you care if I put my Calendly link in the chat?
Not at all, not at all.
Okay.
Everyone, you will be getting a recording of this once, the internet does its little thing. But certainly, I mean, Sean's strategy, clearly he's doing stuff right. He owns 6 facilities. Um, he obviously knows his numbers. If you've sat through this presentation and you're going, oh my gosh, I have no idea how how I get to this. Um, Listen to Sean, hang out with Sean, book time with Sean, and have a conversation so you can really understand your numbers. And I mean, I have a background in business, and when I first started my daycare journey, um, not a clue, not a clue. And I know that there were times early on that I was probably in the 60 percentile of labor costs. And then when I realized that I didn't want to raise prices and I needed to really look at cost was when I actually really started digging into my labor costs. And I went, huh, I got too many people just standing around. And I'm not scheduling people based on number of dogs. I was just scheduling people based on the schedule because it was just easy to always have 5 people on a Monday morning and 5 people on a Monday afternoon and do 5 people every day of the week, even though my numbers were 60 on a Monday and 100 on a Thursday.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, I think it's something that everybody goes through. But I've gone to like conferences for years and I've heard people say, this is where we need to be, this is where we need to be, but I've never seen anybody offer like a real solution.
yeah, how do you get there?
Right.
Absolutely. And that is what we love about your program is that you can physically see it and it's based on each person's individual historical data of how they operate. So that's what makes it, in my mind, the easiest. It's not somebody saying, yeah, you should be at 30, 40, 50, whatever percentage. And then
Yeah.
you wreck in your head trying to figure out how you get there. So that makes it super, super difficult. Understand it's very impactful bottom line. Do you use the historical data? Yes.
Yeah. AL, the the historical data, yes, is super helpful. I said earlier, like if you know how many dogs are coming, um, that's even better because then you can really nail it down to the number of hours you need. But yeah, you schedule to averages or medians. There's some people who are average people and some people are median people. I usually look at both. But anyways, averages usually are what you use yeah, by day of week because you can't schedule, as you probably already know, you can't schedule for those anomalies. You know, a lot of people want to say, well, we have 110 dogs a day when like they had 110 dogs like once in the last 3 months, right? You really
yeah.
can't schedule for the anomalies. You got to schedule for the averages. So, yeah, as much historical data probably as you have, but 90 days is a good start.
Yeah, like in my head, I'm already like, oh, Monday is our Easter party for the dogs. So I know that that will just be an off day compared to what my historical data would look like. Um, because it's an Easter party for the dogs. So we're gonna have a larger number than normal. And because we have to do staff photos and all that stuff, or not staff, dog photos, I'm gonna have an extra staff person there, right? So that will skew my data just for that particular
Right,
day.
and you know that. So it's like if you are
Yep.
tracking this, you can make notes, right? We make notes when we have somebody in training. That's going to affect it. If you have a little bit of extra hours there for training, those are all kind of parts of just doing business. You can't really get around it.
No, 100%, 100%. Fabulous. Without that, so Sean, people want to find you. What is the best way to book something on your Calendly link, or how else
Yeah,
should
so
people
I mean,
find
if
you?
you're in here right now and you want to chat anytime soon, you can click on that link and book a call. My website, nexttreestrategies.com. You can sign up for that guide and yeah, you'll get a bunch of emails, but yeah, you'll be on my email list and I'm in contact regularly there. I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well. So Next Tree Strategies.
Yay. And if you want to listen to Sean again, or you have somebody else that wants to hear Sean, where are you speaking at next?
Thursday at 1 p.m. at the staffing summit. What is I don't know the total the full name. That's terrible. Um, I think it's like that.
Yes,
It's Dom's Pet Business Marketing Staffing Summit.
correct.
So
Correct. Yep.
Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern.
1 p.m. Eastern. Fabulous. So yeah, so if you again want to hear this, you need your manager to hear this. You need to add more people into to see Sean's presentation so that way helps to create buy-in. That is definitely what you want to do is sign up for Dominic Hodgkins, um, the Pet Care Staffing Summit.
Thank
You can
you.
find it on Facebook. Thank you, Miss Kristen. I spoke today and plugged Sean speaking tonight. So definitely Dom Summit is also very, very helpful as well. So Without that and any other questions, greatly appreciate you joining us, Sean. Hopefully the young man slept all throughout your entire presentation, so that was good.
Yeah, he did all right. He made a couple peeps, but we're good now.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Fabulous. And again, thank you all for coming. Follow a Dog Handler Academy on Facebook. If you don't already follow our link on Facebook, you should. We're always talking to great people like Sean. We have an upcoming webinar soon. We are hosting our summit in October in Chicago, so you definitely want to check that out if you can attend that. Last year was our first year, and Sean dropped this knowledge on us, and I can tell you for a fact that the room all was very quiet, and they all went, holy buckets, this was good info. So always trying to bring you great information, and if there is a certain topic that you want information on, drop us a note on Facebook or Instagram, send us an email, and we will find an expert to bring you that information. As always. So without further ado, thank you all for joining us and have a fabulous night, everybody. Take care.
Thank you very much, Eve. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Love having you.